are just funny little things that won't work unless you do. Yes? So we have this teaching, this idea that we can co-create with God or with infinite intelligence or spirit or however we want to call it, that we can actually influence how our lives turn out by being conscious and aware of our thoughts. Isn't that a great idea? But it doesn't work if you don't work it, right? So, we know that all there is, the one presence, works on this physical plane by working through and as us. That's how it shows up in the physical reality, as us. So, January, we like to go back to the basics. And usually what happens in centers is we review the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind text. And those chapters are entitled The Thing Itself, What It Does, How It Works, and How to Use It. Now, isn't that an amazing concept? That we can use the creative power of God? That is just hanging out there, waiting to help us do what we want to do. An amazing concept, isn't it? We have that wisdom, but we have to put it to work. Now, speaking of wisdom, the human animal, like all animals, is born knowing some things, right? We have instincts, we have an innate knowledge about things to do. If you ever see a newborn baby, all you need to do is touch its cheek, and what does it do? It turns immediately there and starts to suck. That's an instinct. We know how to do that. But you know what? The lower animals seem to have a lot more innate knowledge than we do. Think about it. Did you see the March of the Penguins?
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about an innate knowledge. Many small animals know to recognize the shadow of a hawk flying overhead, and they instinctively know they need to hide. Animals know when to hibernate. They know how to hunt. They know which foods are correct for them and which foods are poisonous. They just know that. So the lower animals have a lot more instinctive knowledge than we do. Isn't that surprising? It seems like the more capacity we have to understand, the more we have to be taught. The more we have to learn it from somebody else. And I wonder if that's always been true, or if that's something that's kind of evolved because of our intelligence, and we start teaching our kids the way to do it and kind of almost in a way deprive them of finding that out for themselves. You know what I'm saying? Wouldn't it be interesting if parents protected their children less and supported them more to go out and discover themselves? A guru said to the young parents, the child will be wounded. The parents said, oh, no, we're doing everything we can to protect him. The guru said, therein lies the wound. Get that? Wouldn't it be interesting if teachers, instead of laying their knowledge on our children, guided them to explore and discover their knowledge and their wisdom, their truth for themselves? What if our governments took less of a big hunk of our money and giving it some of us back and kind of, I don't know, I'm not wanting to get political here or not, but would we build better roads ourselves than I don't know. But you know, maybe we don't have as much knowledge as we could because we've got other people's knowledge being laid over our own natural knowledge. Isn't that an interesting thought? So that's what the science of mind is about doing. It's about getting in touch more with that innate wisdom that we have, our intuition, that pulses in us, that's connected with the universal wisdom, that we really do know ourselves. It's about getting in touch with that and enhancing that instead of replacing our knowledge and even discrediting it. Some of our scientific technology discredits our natural wisdom, doesn't it? So metaphysics is about rediscovering that which we already know. And when you were a child, you knew some things, right? I was brought up with no spiritual tradition, I've told you that before. But I always knew, as a kid, I knew how to go down, this was when kids were allowed to go out and play, go down in the gully and build a fort and spend the day there. You know, out in the woods. I would ride my bicycle alone for hours. I would lie on my bed and wonder what happened after we died. And I'd wonder what happened, would there be another Patsy somewhere just like me, only making different choices and having different experiences. You know, I knew that stuff as a kid. You did too, I'm sure. But you know, that's drummed out of us. And what we want to do back here is get back in touch with that. And realize there's always at least two ways to look at anything. And we always have choice. There was a fellow who bought a very, very, very expensive box of Cuban cigars. He was a businessman, and he wanted this, I mean, like, we're worth $1,000 each. These cigars, he wanted them to impress his business clients. And so it was a business expense, right? And he wrote it off as a business expense and assets and so forth. And he decided to insure them because they were so expensive. He insured them for fire and theft. So he had this very expensive asset. And you know what he did, don't you? He turned around and smoked the suckers. He filed a claim with the insurance company saying they were lost to fire. The insurance company resisted, it went to court, and the judge ruled in the man's favor. Now the insurance company was astounded as you and I are, and they, you know, moaned and groaned and nagged and complained for a little while, and then they sort of said, well, maybe we can look at this in a different way too. So they filed 25 counts of arson. So there's always another way to look at anything, right? Always another way. There's always something to be learned. So many things, there's another way to learn that we don't really understand. There's a lot of unexplainable stuff in our experience and in our world out there with this new age, right? We've got astrology, we've got tarot cards, we've got Reiki and therapeutic touch, and we've got crystals, and we've got walking on coals and fire coals, and, you know, we've got, and spiritual mind treatment. We've got all sorts of woo-woo crazy stuff that we can't explain. Right? It's unexplainable. We don't know how it works. And yet every one of them works to some degree for some people. Right? Why is that? They work to the degree to which we believe in them. Because what it is that's really working is the belief. It's the power of the belief, right? Because there's only one power. And all of those are legitimate ways to access the power. But make no mistake, the crystals don't have a power in themselves. Well, maybe they do, except it's a manifestation of the one power, right? We can choose, and this is why I like this teaching best, we can choose to go directly into the power. So everything is a path to power, and all these disciplines and modalities may be saying, follow this path and you'll find truth. We just stand there and we say, truth. It's all around you. You're within it already. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't necessarily need a path because it's here. It's here. There's one mind, and we're all one within that mind. Amazing, isn't it? But our subconscious mind is like that computer program that's running in the background. You know the one? That interferes every once in a while. You don't even know you've got something running until your computer crashes or something weird happens. That's our subconscious mind. That's all those thoughts that are going on in the background that we've forgotten we had. And we shouldn't give our subconscious mind a bad rap. It's a very good thing. Because when we're asleep, you know, it's breathing us, it's beating our hearts, it's blinking our eyelids, it's digesting our food, it's doing all that great stuff. But it can interfere every once in a while when we're not conscious of what we're thinking. So it would kind of like to take over. So that's what we do here, is we become conscious of our thinking, so that our thinking starts to come by choice and not just reaction to the stimulus of our experience in life. So that's what we're doing here. We're uncovering what we do. So a science of mind treatment is what we do to do that. But first of all, I want to get back to talking about belief. It's our belief that actually does the work. We believe that a science of mind treatment is for the purpose of convincing our mind that what we want to be true is already true. And if we believe it, it will be true. Big breath, right? We don't always believe that, but it's always working. And I love Ernest Holmes' quote. He says, if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. When we believe that it cannot and will not, then according to the principle, it does not. But when it does not, it still does, only it does according to our belief that it will not. As you believe, so it shall be done unto you. So you can choose what to believe. You can choose that this works. You can choose that our thought is creative, and that when we're conscious of our thought, we're creating more of what we really want. So it's accessing that power. That's what a spiritual mind treatment is. It talks us into it. Now, there's a couple of ways of spiritual mind treatment. The magic way, the miracle way, is the realization. That was the way Jesus did it. Take up thy bed and walk. He didn't say there's one God and that God can walk and therefore I'm going to need him. He just said, take up thy bed and walk. Once in a while we can do that, right? Once in a while we just know, right? Did you ever win anything and you knew ahead of time you were going to win it? Mm-hmm. We did that twice. Once was a trip in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. We can do that when we're kind of get all the busyness out of the way. But that usually we need to talk ourselves into it. And so we have this pattern for talking ourselves into it. And it's called a spiritual mind treatment, and it has 5 steps. And since it's January, and since I don't think you can review spiritual mind treatment too much, I'm going to go over it again. Because no matter what class you ever take, no matter what level you take it, it's still all about doing treatment, right? So, a treatment is, first of all, is recognition. What is it we recognize? We recognize that there's only one. Only one. And you know, every faith tradition, the mystical branch of it, the people who are real thinkers will acknowledge that. We can't hurt somebody else without hurting ourselves. That what goes around comes around, that what we set in motion comes back to us. There's only one. We're all connected, inextricably interconnected. And we're all in that one, and the nature of that one is always toward that which is good. That's its natural tendency, towards expansion, health, abundance. Look at the universe. Is there anything more abundant? There's things we can't begin to count. So that's our first step, is we recognize that God is all there is. And if you don't like the word God, you use whatever feels right to you. Infinite mind, source, great spirit, the one, creator. What feels comfortable to you? That's really all there is. And the second step is unification. Because that's all there is, then I must necessarily be some part of it, and it's some part of me. It's here. I can't get away from it. I can never be separate from God, from life. Step 2. So step 3 is recognizing that because I'm one with it and I have the same powers as it, I'm a co-creator with it, then I have the responsibility to be conscious about what I'm choosing in my life and my experience. So step 3 is ordering up what you want, just like when you go to the restaurant. You'll say, I'll have French fries, please. You got to tell it what you want. You know, so many of us spend our lives going, oh, look what life did to me. Oh, God, it's happening again, you know. And we don't know that it's our thinking, it's our fears, and all that stuff that actually drew that stuff to us. So we become conscious and we actually choose what we want. And then we give thanks for it. Somebody once said the only real prayer is a prayer of gratitude. When you're grateful for something, you've already got it, right? You feel it. You know it. You conjure up the emotion of what it's like to have that and be that and do that and give thanks. And then we have to let it go. We have to, you know, we know there's a lot of powers in the universe. There's a law of gravity. And we all believe in gravity, yes? Because we see proof of it instantly. I drop something on the floor right away, or at least when I let go of something, right away it falls on the floor. I jump up in the air, right away I come back down. So we absolutely know and trust gravity. There's a law called cause and effect. And it works just as reliable as gravity, only not always so fast. We don't always instantly see the effect of the cause. But it's out there happening. Trust me. What we think about, we create. Our thoughts are cause, and they do have an effect. I had a thought that just went through. Oh. That was an effect, I guess. So everything we think is a thought. So spiritual mind treatment is a way of talking ourselves into believing that which we want to believe. Whether it's in the crystals, whether it's in the, we can use the crystals to convince us, or we can use our mind to convince us. It's already there. Our mind convinces our mind. So an acorn is an oak tree in a nutshell, right? When we do a spiritual mind treatment, that's what our goal is to look within that acorn and find the oak tree. To look within our disease and find our health. To look within our financial challenge and find our abundance. To uncover the truth. It's been, covered up by all this stuff we've created by our doubt and our fear and our worry and the news. That's what our purpose is. And sometimes our biggest need when we're doing treatment is to convince ourselves that our treatment is effective. Right? Because we do a treatment and all the time we're saying, I don't really believe this. What really is causing it to not work according to our belief that it's not going to work. So, treat to be willing if you have to. Heal thou my unbelief. Isn't that a quote from someplace? Treat to have your unbelief healed. Because whatever you believe in is going to be true for you. Again, Holmes says there is only truth and resistance to truth. A practitioner consciously removes the apparent obstruction and leaves the field open to a new influx of spirit. So when we consciously let go of our fear, consciously let go of our picture of how it's supposed to be, consciously let go of this got to be my way, consciously let go of our need to control and change other people, then we make room for a new influx of spirit. But we have to let it go. We don't need to be able to understand this necessarily. It's hard to explain. When we're all here together, we kind of get it. And we support each other. We understand that because we're disposed to understand it and believe it. And then we go out into the world and try and explain it. And they think we're all a little strange. We don't have to explain it. We don't even have to understand it. It's enough to just use it, to trust the process, to know that there are things we will never understand and that are nevertheless true. So we do that with, I like to think of spiritual mind treatment as, or prayer, if you will, as talking to God, sending God an email. Dear God, how are you doing? This is what I'd like, please. And then there's meditation, which is more like kind of browsing around God's website. Oh, let's see what God's up to today. And then there's affirmations. And to continue the computer analogy, I do a lot of affirmations talking to my computer, I'm afraid. It's like, I will get this when I'm positive. Actually, my number one affirmation, I have taped to the top of my computer, I can always turn you off. But when I realize that there is something in the computer that I don't understand how it works, and it knows itself better than I do, and so if I don't align with it, it will win. It will win. So for me, it's like coming to terms with, okay, computer, I understand. You know better than I do how to do this, so I'm going to work with you instead of fighting you. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're aligning with the power. Instead of saying, oh, no, God, you got to do it my way. Okay, God, this is what I want. I know you know how to bring it out. So show me what to do. Right? You don't want to do that, do we? So that's the turning point when we say to the computer, okay, let's do it your way. I know you have the power. And I know you want to help me use that power. I accept, thank you. Turn it back on again. And then there's masterminding. And the first step in masterminding is the same step, I believe, as in the 12-step program, is admitting I can't do this alone. Now, I know some people resist that because they say, I can do anything. I'm all powerful. I can do it alone. But it's rising above that concept of alone as the ego thing. Me, this person. It's on a spiritual soul level. Yes, you can do it alone, and the reason you can do it alone is because you're aware of that something else that's flowing through you that's allowing you to do it alone. When you say, no God, I don't need you, I can do it alone. But not I, but the Father within that do the work, right? So masterminding is a great thing. And that's just about supporting people, declaring to people publicly and out loud, this is what I choose. And then the other person says, I support you in that and I accept that for you. We make it real to ourselves. There's all sorts of techniques we can do. But it's all about changing our consciousness. You know what happens when an oyster gets a grain of sand in its shell? It probably struggles and scratches and tries to spit it out for a little while. That's what you do when you get grain in your sand in your bathing suit, right? But eventually the oyster stops resisting it and he coats it with, let's call it love. And he makes a pearl. And that's what we can do in our lives. See, it's not leading the good life that makes us magnificent people. It's leading the hard life and living it well. That's what makes us magnificent, right? We know. Somebody said you wouldn't be given this problem if you weren't big enough to deal with it. And guess what? Once you deal with that, you'll be given a bigger one. Oh, goody. But we have that power. All of these things, all these techniques, these applications, they will empower us to be more joyful, to be more expressive, to be more abundant, to be healthier. And not just for ourselves, for our own benefit, but the reason to improve our own lives is so that we can take this out. We are all one. We're all a unity. Every one of our brothers and sisters who's still struggling in the shadows needs us to be all that we can be. That's all I got to say about that. Namaste.